Good morning.
Good
Welcome. Medicine with
morning.
the Metals. Michelle's back. Hi, Michelle.
Yes, I'm back. I
I'm
was in
back.
Oregon for 5 days seeing my son play at a reggae Rise Up concert. It was very exciting.
Yes, yes. Got a great guest today, but let's talk about some things coming up. We got the Plant Medicine Path community, 2 years in the making, finally going to be launching, huh?
That's right, the Circle community, it's really exciting. We'll definitely be announcing more, but the Circle will be one of our sponsors.
They will be. And Mama Dose always there for everybody. Microdosing, macrodosing needs great sponsor of ours.
That's right, Mama Dose and Mama's Functionals. Don't forget Mama's Functionals because those functional mushrooms are just as important.
We love both of them. So we got a great guest today. Why don't you go ahead and introduce them, Michelle?
Okay, I wanna make sure I say your name right. Welcome, Michael Tierno.
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 Well, I you do a lot of amazing things with men and in this community in general, but if you could introduce yourself to us, please, and we'll jump right into it.
I'm Michael Tierno. I'm Expanded States guide. Expanded states are, can be anything that's outside of our consensual sort of reality, so to speak. So just different modalities. Some of them are plant medicine, meditation, breath work. There's many different ways to do that. I work one-on-one with men and women. So doing guided journeys. And then I also run a retreat in the United States for the past 5 years called Men of Integrity. And that is targeted towards men. And we would like to open it up to a women's group as well, because it's been so transformative and powerful. We're just working on putting together the team and transferring that so that we can do that.
Yeah. Really
Yeah.
looking forward to diving into that conversation for sure.
Mhm.
So what cracked it wide open for you, Mike? What cracked it wide open? What was your experience that did it all?
Well, before this, 10 years ago, I was what they call a rational materialist. So I was a science guy, and I'm still a science guy. So I'm not super into the woo woo stuff, but I went to Peru. I was, family, kids, job, fairly, successful by the American dream sort of standards. And I've basically decided to go to Peru. So like many people, I went to Peru by myself. It's a longer story that I've told many times. So I'll save that for people can look it up if they're that interested. But I went to Peru, not thinking much about it, sort of kind of in adventuresome mode, not having read things. Like 10 years ago, there wasn't as much information as there is now on plant medicine and ayahuasca and such. So I had heard these wild stories. I had done some psychedelics in high school and hadn't done anything in that vein, and especially anything that wasn't recreational in 25 years or so. So this was a big leap for me. I went traveled to Peru by myself, went on this retreat, and that's where I got blown open, so to speak. I realized a lot of things. First of all, the first hour or so of my first journey, I was like, I'm getting the hell out of here. This is way too much for me. What was I thinking? All those kinds of things. I was quite, not having it and thinking that I would be leaving the next day. And then some words from the facilitator that he had, gave this long question and answer period before each journey, which I really appreciated because he was a very wise person with a lot of knowledge. He said, and don't worry what happens, in 4 hours, we'll be sitting around here having fruit. So if anything gets a little squirrely, just relax, breathe, and surrender to the medicine, and you'll be fine. And don't worry, in 4 hours, we'll be sitting around here hacking fruit. So in the peak of my sort of, lost in the sauce discomfort, I remember those words. They came to me like from the side. I remember, okay, just relax. And in 4 hours or in like 3 hours now, we're going to be having some fruit and this will be over apparently. And I did that, and everything changed. As soon as I kind of relaxed and said, okay, I'm just going to allow what happens to happen, immediately the experience changed. And it was a big teaching for me because I realized that I wasn't actually seeing or experiencing anything that was that uncomfortable. It was my mind telling me that, because it was very different from my experience in regular consensual reality, that I was freaking out about that. But when I just allowed myself to just sit there and witness these, objectively beautiful visions and this experience, the thoughts behind it and the emotions behind it also changed such that it was absolutely like a bliss state. One of the most powerful divine experiences I ever had. And I realized that much of my quote unquote scientific thinking wasn't even scientific, because scientific just looks at how nature behaves. It doesn't explain what nature is, and it also can't prove a negative. So I was disproving anything divine or spiritual or anything like that, or not believing those things because there wasn't quote unquote scientific proof about it, but not really taking the scientific method at full, in its full beauty and its full capacity, which is you can't prove that something doesn't exist. You can only show that something does exist. So why am I so anti some of these spiritual states and such, and this spirituality, this divine nature that hasn't been proved, but also can't be disproved. Meanwhile, I'm having this divine experience. I'm having this connected experience with, what I think of now as like the tapestry of all creation or reality. So that's what really took the cork off the bottle, so to speak. And it's been a very, interesting and intellectually satisfying journey ever since then.
What did your wife and kids think of this adventure of yours at the time?
Well, the kids didn't know anything about it because I wasn't telling them about this stuff then, and this was fairly close to the best. The best and worst reaction that I had was from my wife when I came back about 2 months in, because when I came back from the ayahuasca retreat, there was a lot of changes in my behavior and my way of being. So I was much more relaxed. I was just, things could come at me and just less stressed. I stopped drinking any alcohol from being a social drinker to like a zero drinker. Just because that's some realizations that came as to what I was using alcohol for. Which I think are very common and probably the reasons most people use alcohol. So all these things. And then she looked at me, and one day we're in the kitchen, and she said, you look like you changed, but I don't believe it. Like, and I was like, oh. And it didn't even bother me. It didn't faze me. I was like, well, kind of like that new book, Let Them. I was like, well, all I can be is me. And it's been a process of just being me and letting things unfold as they do ever since then. Hasn't all been peaches and cream, as life is not all peaches and cream, but it's given me opportunity to really roll with any punches in a much more responsive way rather than a reactive way.
Now, just out of curiosity, did she then dive into the medicines as well?
No. She did some other kind of transformational work that I don't think was super beneficial for her or the other people that do that. It's kind of ego based, and it's people a little more closed off, I think it's in the spirit of holding boundaries and stuff like that, but then everything becomes a boundary, and people can become very, very hard. So I think what we're trying to do is to soften, right? To like be more easeful in the world, be more gentle in the world, more compassionate, more, live with more gratitude. And I think some of the, what would you call them? The transformational programs that don't involve medicine, and probably some of them that do involve medicine too. It just depends, I guess, on the facilitator and the methodology. But some of these things I think teach people to harden, and I don't think they're in the best interest for those people themselves and society in general.
It's a good observation. The psychedelics ain't for. There's a process to psychedelics. You really explained that well in the beginning, how when you go into these journeys and when you fear the unknown, these journeys can be a little uncomfortable. But when you let go and you're not going to die, and you're going to be in this experience for 4 to 6 hours, magic does happen. But that's a short amount of time. I mean, it seems like when you went home, you got a powerful message and you integrated it. And that's really what this medicine does. I mean, it really does. And, it's a really powerful tool, the medicine, but the biggest tool is the integration afterwards. And, that's where I think this whole community is really missing number there. So you work with a lot
I
of
agree.
men, and, Yeah, for sure. And you work on men and men in this community, and I think that's, psychedelics are a 70-30 split. It's 70% women, 30% men. And I don't think it's that men want to get in touch with their feelings. Men hate fear. Women are like fear. They like that. Men really don't like that. Gee, I'm uncomfortable, man. I don't like this shit,
Well, I don't think
so
any of us like to be uncomfortable because we're taught from a very young age to get yourself out of being uncomfortable, right? The second you have a headache, take an aspirin. The second you're this, get out of being uncomfortable. And I think integrating is also learning that it's okay to be uncomfortable and remind yourself, I can do this for 4 hours. I can do this for 6 hours and I can be uncomfortable. And then when you learn to be uncomfortable in that space, it allows you to learn to be uncomfortable in your life.
Oh, for sure. That's something. What you said, I have a couple things to respond to things, but what you said about being uncomfortable in your life, some of these experiences often are so squirrely and so uncomfortable. Anything that comes at you after you've had some experience with the medicines and stuff, you'd be like, well, I've been through a lot more hairy moments and just like moment by moment, like, very intense experiences. And then it does allow you, to your point, Michelle, that it does allow you to kind of dial back the reaction and be like, oh, I can handle this because I've handled so much more. I've been experienced such more levels of intensity. And with men,
It's empowering.
it is. I think it's a great empowering and to show someone who has done this when they do, like a client, when they do like, oh no, now my life is getting a little, there's some things that I don't like, and reminding them, hey, you've done something that was a lot harder than what you're dealing with right now, and giving them the confidence and the resolve to be able to like meet the situation that's happening in their life, with a little more quiet and a little more patience and a little more like awareness, which is so important. But to talk about men, I don't know if I don't know if I totally agree that men are scared about being scared. I think they're scared about being vulnerable. They're so used to stuffing down all the feelings, the expressions, the thoughts. Bill Burr has a little comedy bit in one of his bits. He takes guys are allowed only to feel two things: I'm okay, or I'm pissed off. Right? Anger or okay. And so whenever experience gets outside of that sort of balance, that's either like I can be angry about something, which is the entire palette of emotional experience that men are generally allowed to feel, or I'm okay, which is just kind of the static, just like, I'm not angry right now. To get out of that emotional, that really black and white or gray emotional palette, and come into the full color of expression of the whole emotional experience. I think that's a little tender for guys. They don't know if it's acceptable. They don't know how they'll be judged. They don't see men model that. They don't see, guys be direct and clear and honest about how their internal state is actually going in a very well articulated way. And that's something that, we as facilitators in that MOI experience anyway, that's something we model from the time people walk in the doors. Like, very like zero judgment, total curiosity, no bullshit, no anything in it. You watch people that come in very closed off, drop their armor, and they're concerned for how they're going to be viewed and judged very quickly, because they see it being modeled by the facilitators specifically, and by all the participants, when they realize that this is a new way of being for them and that it's a safe way of being for them. And then they can bring that out into the world.
That they're allowed to express their feelings. My
Mm-hmm.
mother-in-law said to me after Mark went and did ayahuasca a few times, "Does everybody cry after the ayahuasca like this?" Yes. Yes, they do. The ayahuasca, that's what she calls it, the ayahuasca. Yes, they do.
It's cute.
It breaks you open
Of course.
if you
Yeah.
allow it.
If you allow it.
it's funny how we portray what so many people think about us, especially men. We have this, what is he going to feel about me? It's profound once you're not in this space, how we don't really care what people think about us anymore. And, I think the biggest thing is mirrors, and we see these projections of ourselves and so many other things. And I don't think we really understand mirrors so well. Mirrors aren't always something good about you. I mean, there are the bad parts about you that you don't like about you that you see in others. There's so many things to mirrors, but we're such a reflection of each other. And it's really, it's really powerful how men really, or myself, I should say, really had an objective opinion of what everybody else was thinking of me when, you know, 90% of the time they probably even weren't. It's crazy.
Right. And
Hmm.
what's weird too is that you're not even worried about what they're actually thinking about you. You're making up a model for what they're thinking about you. So it's even
Right. Their
two steps
story.
removed. It's not even like I'm worried about, you know, in actuality, you'll describe it as I'm worried about what they're thinking about me, but I'm worried about what they're thinking about me is the model that I'm thinking about me, because we're kind of observing ourselves through the other eyes, like you were saying, like through a mirror. And then it's like, oh, like it's
All
unfortunate.
these medicines really dive you into one thing, and I really think it's that childhood trauma. And a lot of us men are
Mhm.
really afraid to go to those spaces. But for me, on this path, it was the only way. You know, it was really uncomfortable in the beginning, but to find those broken pieces and to even dive searcher, it was kind of like a puzzle for me. Okay, well, if that wasn't it, what's next? What triggered me there? Why did that just
Mhm.
happen? And that's, you know, to me, that's integration. Like a year ago, I could never talk without crying. It was so wild. I was like, why can't I fucking cry about all this shit? But I know why now, because those pieces were still so broken. So I was like, well,
Mm.
now I fixed them and now they're kind of healed. I still get teary eyed sometimes because of the accomplishments, but I don't think I could ever go back to that feelings again. It's kind of, the integration is so important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Nacho, who's a friend of mine, he's the person who serves the ayahuasca down in Peru at the retreat I'm affiliated with. He always says, he always likes to remind people, and I've stolen this thing. The ceremony starts when the ceremony's over, really. And that's so true, because like you get the homework, you get like, okay, the new awarenesses, the new colorings to self, the new kind of like things you got to do. Sometimes it's a pain in the butt, the things you have to do to change in your life. Sometimes it's tactical work stuff, but you get all the homework, and a lot of people unfortunately don't integrate it, to your point, and then they go to the next ceremony to get the same message, and then still don't integrate it. But really what the work is to like now implement what did you learn in your ceremony and implement it into your life, because we're here to live and have this human experience, right? And to the extent that we're not living it, that we're not appreciating it, that we're not really embracing the entirety of this miracle that is to be on this, to be in his body in this world, with the relationships we have and with the work we need to do, um, you know, we're not really living. We're just kind of like existing, which is not quite as
And at the
fulfilling.
beginning, Michael, a lot of these things are really new, to people. So they're really uncomfortable. So I just like to let the audience know, in the beginning, none of this shit's really comfortable. Talking to your own self is not comfortable, and understanding is just kind of different in the beginning. But, it's the only
See?
thing, because I truly believe we have a soul and then we have a body. And our soul is our energy. Our soul is everything that's intertwined, interconnected, and just it's there. But we combat, and then maybe our souls are ego or
Right.
whatever that is, but it's something that's there. So those two have to communicate to each other, and they have to get along together. So that's my belief, and that's just how I process this whole medicine. And for men, I'd like to really dive into how you do some of these retreats for men. Is it different than just a typical retreat?
Well, there's a lot of differences. Primarily, I mean, I've looked into a lot of retreats, and they don't do kind of the pre and the post that we do. So the retreat itself starts, it's basically a 7-week container, even though the retreat's only 4 days. So we start weeks in advance with, we close the retreat. I think we just closed the last one 2 days ago for October. And then starting in about a week, we're going to have three weekly, three calls, Zoom calls, about 2 hours each, that we'll have the group together, and we'll start processing, start getting to know each other, start like, getting a feel. This is the group that we're going to have this experience. And then we have then we have the retreat itself, which is different. I mean, I haven't been to a lot of men's retreats, but it's different in terms of like how we've developed the order of the medicines we used and how we do it. And we have we do a lot of workshops. We do workshops on male female relationships. We do or masculine feminine relationships, actually. So it doesn't have to be male, female, I guess. And we do something about finding purpose, this Japanese sort of thing called ikigai. So we're weaving all this kind of stuff. We do morning routines. There's not a lot of free time. And then when we're done with the retreat itself, which is, the big, the big opening, then we have one-on-ones with each participant after post-retreat. So one of the facilitators will be matched up with one of the participants and do 2 one-on-ones, as well as another additional, I think, 2 post with the group together to kind of like follow up and find out. And then not only that, but then everybody gets dumped into into our Telegram group, which is like 40 something people large now. And people get continued support. We do challenges, including one of the challenges we have is we match people with somebody who wasn't at their retreat, and then they're supposed to have a communication call, a deep communication call about their life and get connected and stuff. And we do fasts, and we do all these other kind of challenges to kind of keep the group together and support each other.
That's a really unique idea, that one with, after a guy's on the road to recovery here after a little while, to kind of get him in. That's a good way to do it. It's that engagement you keep with people in that group, and just that
Well, I think in
connection.
starting it at the connection beforehand, because people who
Yeah,
haven't done medicine before, if this is their first retreat, you don't know that these are your comrades, and you don't know that feeling of family that you have once you've gone through this experience together. It's pretty
Right.
powerful.
Right.
especially I think,
Yeah.
Michelle or Mike, especially in the men's retreat. I would say, in the co-ed retreats, I think there's a lot more ego, from the men.
Mhm.
I think maybe when you're broke down in a men's retreat, you're a little bit, okay, these are my boys, or whoever you are, you
Well,
know?
it's the
For
same for
sure.
women, though. If you have just a group of men, they are going to act differently than if you even put one
Yeah,
female
for
in there. Just
sure.
like if you have a group of women, they're gonna act differently if you put one male in there. So it
Mhm.
definitely works both ways. It's great to have it separate. It's great to bring them together too, but it's really important to do separate things as well.
I totally agree. It's just get one. All the attention gets all diverted and squirrely once you mix them up. So
Now, is there certain men more so than others? Is it you see a lot more veterans coming or something to that capacity, or is it just the everyday man?
it's a good question. It's a question I get asked. I guess the average age is probably like 45. So as young as 24, as old as 65, 66, 45. I think if I had to identify, it's whenever a person is getting that middle passage sort of experience, and I find that also with female clients, is like in the early 40s when you start, like, you've already had your kids if you were having kids, and you're kind of like, okay, I've done all the things the society's told me to do, I've got the job, everything's kind of rolling. It's the same thing with me. 42 years old, it was kind of like everything was kind of rolling, and then there's a sense of dissatisfaction. And they say, like, in the Jungian psychology, that's when you go into directing yourself to the greater purpose versus the working on what you have to work on for this world, family and work. And then you're like, oh, now I want to leave. And it's not legacy ego based, but it's like, I want to leave the world a better place than I found it, because now I'm on the downhill for the rest of this life. So what am I going to do? And without having a clear path or understanding, there's a sense of angst and kind of dissatisfaction, and kind of like, I don't know, like, is this all there is? And then I think that whenever one gets the call for that is when people start, looking into more of these, transformational processes, including plant medicine, which I'm obviously a huge proponent of and fan of. So I think that's what would be the main demarcator of any man or woman who is entering into this space, is that feeling of like, okay, well, what more for this human existence? Is this all there is to it? And kind of, like, why haven't I worked through all this shit from childhood yet? Because I'm now a grown adult and I'm still dealing with the same issues and finding myself in the same situations with the same things. And then at that point in time is when it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
That wounding stops back then, though. I mean, that's what we explain to people, why haven't you healed from it? Because it stopped. It never allowed you to heal. It just, you moved on from that. So there's where our traumas sit, So looking
Well,
at
we're
the
never allowed to
But
heal,
it's
and especially
and
men, right? We tell our little
Can't be
boys,
said.
stop crying, be tough, toughen up, don't cry, don't do that.
Mhm.
So from a young age, we're training them not to express their feelings.
Exactly. And I think that, I mean, I'm into the some of the Jungian archetypes related to what you were just mentioning, Michelle. Like when we tell a boy not to cry, what are we telling them not to do? Right? We're telling them to not be embodied or in touch with the aspects of the divine feminine that they have in them, that capacity for intuition, flexibility, expressiveness, healing nature, vulnerability, all that stuff. We tell them don't be a p word or don't cry or don't do this. I don't want you to be like this. And then what does a little boy necessarily do? He's going to retract away from that divine feminine nature that we all have in us. And when you retract away from that, you actually start expressing the opposite of those expressions. So maybe more authoritarianism, more cruelty, less compassion, being hard-hearted and insensitive. And then we call that the toxic masculine characteristics. And it has nothing to do with masculinity. It has to do with in my view, it has to do with a retraction from our divine feminine nature. So, and then
And then
people
when you
start,
do it to your sons, because that's the way
Mhm.
that your dad did it with you, and so now my son's gonna be tough, and it just gets that is how generational trauma continues.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that is the way.
So, like, what patterns or like the core wounds do you kind of most commonly see in the men? What are what are some of those?
Core wounds. I mean, there's some beliefs that they are only valuable as providers and protectors, and that their capacity for being in the world and their value doesn't extend beyond that. That they can't be nurturing. That they can't be all the stuff we were just talking about. Basically, that is like a core wound. Is so if I'm a provider and a protector, it doesn't give me a lot of emotional bandwidth, right? It doesn't give me a lot of expressiveness. I can't be in my fullness as a person. So that would be one thing. I mean, that's a tricky question beyond that because that's the most general thing. I think a lot of guys, because they're yeah, what I talk about mostly with guys is having them quiet down and listen to start connecting, start connecting their interior emotional experience with actual words, because they don't have a vocabulary for these things. And there's something called an emotion wheel that you can look at that has the four core emotions, and it starts breaking down into more finer and finer resolutions. And so like go inside and look. So a lot of, but not most of, but something that's common with a lot of things that I teach guys is how to use this emotional will to just do a little meditation. What am I feeling? And then identify the word that is connected to that feeling, and then go and say like, why am I feeling that? What is inside the external environment that's causing me to feel irritated versus angry, right? Irritation is a little more, a little like, it's like a pink rather than a red, right? Or whatever it is, I'm feeling some kind of grief. Maybe there's a grief. So why am I feeling that? Maybe there's just a melancholy or a malaise or whatever it is, but just giving a little more emotional vocabulary and connecting that to what each of these like more subtle emotions, more nuanced emotions feels like in the body, and what is in our external world that's either triggering something inside us to cause us to feel this, or is actually external to us that's causing us to feel this. So that is something that I think all men can work on.
And we love it as women. It's so funny because I don't know who came up with this however many generations ago that you have to be tough and be angry and be all the things because we as women love it when you soften up
Mm,
and
yeah, for
express your
sure.
emotions and cry.
Another thing that absolutely, and another thing that we teach is something called containment. So in our relationship workshop, we talk about the fact that men and women have different needs in relationships, and a lot of times the miscommunication, not a lot of times, almost always, right? The miscommunications uh, results from having an expectation that your feminine partner, if you're a man, or your masculine partner, if you're a woman, or you're feminine, that they are looking at the world through the same lens as you are. And so you'll say something and it doesn't land the same way because there's there's a couple of different needs in relationship if you're a woman versus if you're a man. So, and then changing the lens and understanding the feminine and the masculine as having these different relational needs actually changes everything. Because then you're like, oh, I'm not crazy, she's not crazy, we're just needing different things. And so if I can meet her needs and explain, since we're mostly working with men now, explain what my needs are in a way that she can understand it, how we, bring this information out to my relationship. Now we can talk to, we can see how the other person is viewing our behavior, our activities and whatnot. And then move forward in a much more, relational and deeper way and continue to blossom that relationship.
Hmm. Well, you've got your retreat in the United States. I want to talk about that, but let's talk about your retreat center that you co-founded in Peru, Heart
Mhm.
Sanctuary. So
Sure.
tell us about that.
Well, because I'm involved in this space, a lot of people ask me like, where can they get do ayahuasca? And if you are, if you really track what's going on and you're in the forums and all that kind of stuff, see that there's a lot of peddlers, peddling retreats that don't have like, if I'm going to say, someone's going to ask me where to go, like, I want to make sure I know what's going on. I don't want to send them somewhere that's going to have a cast of characters that's ongoing rotation of like, okay, who's going to teach yoga this week or kind of thing. And, you know, reduce the volume on the amount of problems that might happen. And then make sure that it's a safe experience from start to finish for them, safe and, transformative. So Heart Sanctuary started about 5 years ago, and it's we don't do too many retreats right now. We're just doing like one a year, but just because this year was so slow with everything with regards to the economic uncertainty based on that. I think it's based on the the administration of the United States. People are just a little more hesitant to take advantage for their to do things for themselves. They're kind of like, well, let's wait and see what happens before I go to another country and do these things. But they're all people that I know, that I trust, and that I would send basically if my kids were going to say, hey, I want to try ayahuasca. That's where I would send them, because I know, first of all, I've sat with a lot of different curanderos, and the person that sits down there, he is like next level, uh, wonderful, both in ceremony and outside of ceremony, like just absolutely impeccable with his dietas and his wisdom. And he's just like got this kind of childlike innocence. He and his team, because really like we cap our retreats at 10 people, and there's 7 or 8 facilitators in the room. 5 of them are part of Nacho's team, and then the retreat facilitators that are part of the Heart Sanctuary team more specifically. And it's very well regulated in terms of the rules and the boundaries of the retreat. It's super well orchestrated, and the music that these people play is out of this freaking world. I mean, Nacho he's like Prince. He plays like every instrument. He can play like 3 or 4 instruments simultaneously and sing at the same time. He's playing a flute, a tabla, shaking this thing. And it's like, it's wild how amazing it is. And then something that, that's fine, right? So fun ceremony, beautiful ceremony, beautiful music, but he also makes himself available the day after each ceremony and does one-on-one integrations, which I've never heard of any curandero doing that. Sometimes because of language, sometimes because of cultural differences, they just can't mesh with the thing. And so he will, spend about an hour the next day with each participant. I don't know how when the guy sleeps, because he doesn't sleep at the retreat center. He goes back home and he comes back like 4 hours later. And we'll sit with it like an hour per participant with a translator if necessary, and goes through all the visions, the experience, tries to connect it with life and stuff like that. And it's just powerful. I've learned so much just from being a translator on many of those one-on-one integration sessions. This is a really amazing. I think it's missing from most retreats. But everybody does the whole group retreat, group integration circle, where if you have something deeply personal, you might not want that happen in childhood, like maybe like sexual abuse or some kind of a mother who's an alcoholic or something like that, you might not want to disclose it to the group of folks that you just met a couple days ago. But when you're a one-on-one with the person who's there really primarily to help you work through this thing in a more intimate setting, I mean, you can talk about the full experience that you had without any kind of filters. And I think it's just a really powerful thing to do.
Of course, it's so important. I mean, the group is nice, but I'm on the same page. At least 10 minutes after the experience, group integrations don't really cut it, and that's where we're really missing it.
Yeah,
So,
for
But
sure.
there is something to be said about group integrations. I've been going to an integration call, the same call. It's actually where I met Mark, was on this integration call for 7 years now, every Wednesday night. I
Well, that's
still
different.
go to
The
it.
group and stuff like that.
yeah,
I think that's
for
super
sure.
Family.
valuable, right? Absolutely. But I think what Mark was referring to and I was referring to was like when you do the whole circle and everybody right
Yes,
after the ceremony,
for sure.
everybody does like, give me your, how deep are you going to go? Like I've been to a lot of retreats and day sessions where, 30 people in the room, like we're going to do our integration now. And
Yeah.
everybody gets like 2 or 3 minutes to say like, that's not integration, give me a break. Like that's just kind of announcing your highlights from your
And
journey
there's
the night before.
and there's no better experience than actually sitting with tribes. But we got to be in this space. No matter how good you are, you just still you have to have cautious awareness of your own common sense sometimes. Just look what happened to arrhythmia the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, there's bad everywhere, and you
Well,
just
that
got to
sort of
use common sense.
comes to my next question of integrity. Your group is called Men, or your space is called Men of Integrity. What does integrity mean to you in your personal life, in your work life, in general?
It means to like, have a moral compass that you can sort of like, and operate by that moral compass. It's not necessarily defined by the law, right? Because the law is sometimes arbitrary, but it is like, am I moving towards the betterment of myself, betterment of my family, my friends, and all sentient beings? Is what I'm doing in integrity with that, and I'm moving the ball forward so I can leave the world a better place than this. If that's all in alignment, then you're in integrity. If you're making exceptions for yourself and have to justify things to be able to live with yourself based on a behavior that you're doing, then you're not in integrity. It's pretty simple. It's just, listening to like that moral compass that we all have.
And is Aya the only medicine you guys work with?
No. In fact, Men of Integrity doesn't work with ayahuasca.
Can you tell us what you work with?
Yeah, we do I'll just, without naming the names, we do a short acting psychedelic that,
That
that
would be
we call
Bufo
training.
5-MeO.
No, not that one, not 5-MeO. So we call that training. So it gives you an opportunity to be deep in that medicine space, but also, so that's first night we do training, which is short 7 to 10 minute journeys. And then we watch, it's a one-on-one in the group. There's like a facilitator and the person there, and we can watch them and make sure that if they're like getting anxious or having a challenging experience, give them some training on how to deal with these squirrely experiences, and breath, like connecting with yourself, dropping back, all different things that you can do. Put your hand in heart, your stomach, ask for help, like if you need it, like that's always available. So there's the training first day, and you get up to 3 opportunities. So sometimes people that have never done anything, this is their first like taste, and then they're like, "Well, that was kind of scary." And then, okay, well, this time we're going to try it again, and we're going to do we're going to approach it this other way. And then by the time they've done that, now they have some tools to be able to go into the deeper dive, which is the most popular thing that you're wearing on your shirt there. So we do a deep dive. It's called the deep dive day, and then that is done in the group with sober facilitators, and like I said, max 7, usually 6, and then 4 facilitators. So if anybody needs support, help taken out of the room, talk through something, work through something, calm down, express something, we have fully the horsepower to be able to support everybody in their journey. And then day 3 is the whole day's integration and workshops. So we're, do the group thing, do one-on-one things, and everybody's talking about, the big deep dive the day before. And the final day is another workshop, and then heart opener. So after everybody's gone through the gauntlet, which most retreats and in my training, they always say to do a heart opener first, which I think is kind of my own opinion. It's kind of BS because it kind of artificially creates connection. And we want to have natural connection, honest connection, deep connection that isn't mediated by any sort of heart opening medicine, so that when we get to the heart opening, everybody's already, best buds, has gone through it. And it's very, very powerful, very, very awesome, because you've gone through something with everybody. And so when you get to the heart opening day, it's in the graduation, it's like, wow, it's like just tears and joy.
And where are you located? Can you tell us where you are?
Yeah, in Northern California.
Before we head out here, a couple really quick things. We want to expand a little bit more on your 2 locations where you're at, and go ahead and plug those, and more about these retreats and like the men's, where you offer those and when you offer those and the timing about those.
So we do a men's retreat, like, okay, so Heart Sanctuary is in Peru. And so that's just I'd say like a vetted by me ayahuasca retreat, right? So there's, I know everybody who works there. I've known them for years. I think it's fantastic. It's where I would go. It's the only place I'm doing ayahuasca now. So, and then the Men of Integrity thing happens every 3 to 4 months in the United States. At some point in time, hopefully next year, we've been trying to sort it out. We're going to do Women of Authenticity. So a like-minded retreat with a similar sort of platform, similar sort of thing, but run by women. And yeah, basically start that. We have, and so that's 4 times. It's in Northern California. We go to a place that's about an hour away from Sacramento. It's up in the woods. Very beautiful spot. So that's that. I hope I answered that question. And then one-on-ones I do all year round in my office at San Rafael.
So you do one-on-one ceremonies or one-on-one integration?
One-on-one ceremonies. So
that's awesome.
so
Just
if
you
someone wants to,
and the person.
just me. Yeah, those are crazy because I actually record the entire journey, which is, as you know, it's like,
That's
it's going.
awesome.
And then I deliver like a transcript and a bunch of like, summaries and all this stuff. So it's actually really actionable. I think people get a lot out of that. And
Will you
yeah,
travel
I
to
don't know.
people for that, or do you have people come to you?
People come to me. So I don't have like any clients right now in the Bay Area. They all come from out of state and all over the place, just because it's all word of mouth. So it's just like people flies. Somebody came in from London once. I was like, wow, that was a lot of trouble for them
That's
to do it,
awesome.
but they wanted to sit with me.
I love the recording part of that. That's really a
I do
cool
too.
concept.
Yeah, it's crazy because you get so much is lost, as you know, from every journey you've ever done. So much is lost from it. And in the one-on-one space, since it is a guided journey, it's not just an internal solo journey. We're talking through the whole thing. There's obviously big periods of space and openness, but we're working through all this. It gets captured. And especially towards the end, I do my best effort to like try and sort out what's happened during the quiet parts, like what you're thinking, what you see, all that kind of stuff. And then doing the analysis on it, like core themes, core dilemmas, like in action plans for like what to do. It's all sorted out. And then, do the follow-up call and just support them in the afterwards as well.
That is
But it's all
super
there.
cool. I really like
Yeah,
that
thank
you
you.
record them. We have recorded each other during certain ceremonies when we were just by ourselves, and it was incredible to go back and watch it. It was, we recorded audio and video, and it was
Oh,
amazing.
wow. Yeah.
It was just us and our facilitator,
Mhm.
so, that was
Sure.
okay with just the 2 of us, but it was
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah. Now with, you could do a speech to text, so you don't have to sit through, 6 hours of video. You just run it through. You get, my longest transcript's 165 pages. It's just like, wow. It's a lot in there, But if you remember, like, hey, I mentioned something about my mom or something like that, you just keyword search mom, and then boom, 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 just read everything you said about mom.
That
It's
is
it's
awesome,
really quite,
Michael. I love that
yeah,
you
it's pretty
do
cool.
that.
It
So,
is.
well, great conversations today, Mike. Let's go and what was your biggest obstacle right now in the space?
Biggest obstacle in the space is, that's a good question. I think I'm part of this group called Psychedelic Guide Network, and we were talking about yesterday is I think guiding is starting to look like coaching, in terms of, like, there's a lot of coaches, but not very few are good, and everybody calls themselves a coach, at least where I live. And so I think guiding, there's a lot of people that are just putting up a shingle, don't have any training, don't have experience. Something that really bothers me, I learned about, you guys should probably know this, that in Oregon, because one of the facilitators that I am part of my supervisory group is in Oregon. He says that the requirements in Oregon to get the certification for this don't actually require the practitioner to have used medication at all. So they have a training. Isn't that wild? That,
Yeah,
I
that's
guess that's what
crazy.
bothers me.
It is.
And
That's crazy to me because why would you even wanna go sit with somebody who had never been in the medicine space
insane.
before? That's crazy to me.
Insane, 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 insane. So I guess that's what's bothering me the most is, like, not realizing, that the guide brings something, or the facilitators bring themselves to the situation. If they don't have any experience, they have no idea. Like, like, how could you even describe, like, a psilocybin journey to somebody who hasn't had it? I mean, there's tons of, it's, everybody, wow, I had no idea that was what was going to be uncovered or experienced. And then to be sitting for somebody and not having had that experience, that's a real, it really drives me bananas to even think that anybody thought that was a good idea under any circumstances. So
That's what happens when you involve the government. So, what- we can definitely a great conversation today. I can tell you're definitely a guy with ethics. Anything else, Michelle?
No, you're just doing really good work, and I appreciate it. I know a couple of facilitators out there. Our friend in Florida, his name just left me. Jenna, she's in Oregon, but our friend in Florida who does all men's retreats as well, and it's just a beautiful thing. It really is. It's incredible. It's good work that you're doing, and I appreciate it.
thank you. Appreciate you guys for having me on.
Thanks so much, Michael.
Great conversation. Have a good day.